It is still developing. You're looking at live pictures outside the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices have handed down their ruling, first of all, on the Federal Defense of Marriage Act. They have ruled that it's unconstitutional. The government cannot distinguish between people who are same-sex married and everyone else in the country. And now the justices have issued a ruling on Proposition 8 here in California. Prop 8 was passed in 2008 that said marriage had to be between a man and a woman. Prop 8 has been kicked back down to the Federal Appeals Court, which ruled it unconstitutional. The justices have ruled that the people who brought the lawsuit to try and defend Proposition 8, those people who defended Proposition 8 had no legal standing to bring that to court. So now we go to our experts.
Yes, what does this all mean for you? San Diego State lecturer Wendy Patrick, also defense attorney Anna Yum. Ladies, explain this, break this all down, take all the big words out of it. What does this mean?
So what this means, Shelley and Paul, is that legal standing means that you have a legal right to defend an action or to make an appeal. And so what the Supreme Court justices were saying is that these private citizens who were defending Proposition 8 did not have that standing, and therefore the case was dismissed. It got punted back to the lower courts. And essentially what that means is that likely, and we don't know this for sure, but likely the lower court's decision will stand, which means that same-sex marriage should be valid here in the state of California.
Wendy, we just got word of a tweet, President Barack Obama tweeting saying that today's DOMA ruling is a historic step forward for hashtag marriage equality, hashtag love is love.
One of the things that this ruling really signifies is the difference between the practical application of the laws as they're being interpreted and what the Supreme Court had to do. What the Supreme Court had to do is not take into account public opinion on either side, but litigate the issues that were before it. And you said, you know, make this easy language. Standing is really the principle which defined what they did with Prop 8, is whether or not they believe that under the law, not under the positions taken by either side, but legally under the law, it was this properly before it. We had some intimation that that was going to be an issue from the Supreme Court due to the comments that the justices made during oral argument in March. And sure enough, as many people speculated and actually correctly ended up guessing that this was actually something that characterized the way they decided Prop 8. Now, have we seen the last of this issue? Unlikely on either side. Nonetheless, it really draws a distinction between what people are looking for as an outcome-driven result of the decision today and the task that was before the U.S. Supreme Court, which was interpreting the laws as they currently exist.
So let me try and get this straight. Can somebody go back to court now here in California and try to uphold Proposition 8 using a different route legally? Can it stay suspended in limbo for years while it's fought again?
I don't anticipate that it'll be in limbo for years, but I do think that there is going to be some sort of expeditious process here in the state of California to find out and to see what the next step is. The Attorney General, the Governor, did not defend Proposition 8, again, as we stated before. So I think that this is going to be a situation where members of the LGBT community and people who do want to engage in same-sex marriage are going to be pounding their fists and wanting to move forward and having their equal protection of rights.
So Wendy, what happens next from this point, now that we've heard these decisions? What happens now?
As with any controversial legal issue where there are arguments on both sides, we will continue to see likely challenges, not only in California, but in all states. It's a constitutional law example of our judicial system and our voter initiative system in process.
And one thing I'd like to add, which I think is very interesting with respect to DOMA, is that it's still going to raise so many important legal questions, because now that DOMA is considered unconstitutional, what's going to happen to someone who is engaged in a same-sex marriage in a state of Washington, where it is recognized, versus another American citizen who is in a civil union or a domestic partnership? To Americans, different set of rights based upon federal standards. So the legal processes are still ongoing, and there's going to be many questions to answer in the future.
Well, just one more thing from both of you. Wendy, we'll start with you. Was this a great moment for America, just the mere fact that something so controversial came to this point? Was this a great moment in our history?
I would say this is an exercise of why we have the court systems that we do. Why we have lawyers that brief both sides of every issue, and why we have the tough cases sent to the Supreme Court to be decided.
Wow. How about you, Anna?
I do. I think this is a day in history. I think this is a victorious day, especially, like I said, for the members of the LGBT community. I think this is an advancement and a step forward, and I do think it's a great historical day.
Well, and Anna, rather, and Wendy, thank you for being here. Thank you for helping us break this all down.
I have one more question,
Okay,
which is this.
one more question.
The justices didn't actually rule on gay marriage today. They said that the DOMA law was unconstitutional and that Proposition 8 goes back to the lower court. The justices didn't really make a stand on gay marriage, did they?
Well, part of the role of the justices is, not to really come out on either side of any issue that's before it, but to interpret the law that's before it. And that's what they try to do. That's what we rely on them to do. And that's why the lawyers on both sides took such pains to brief both sides of this issue.
So we get legislation, which is done by the state assembly and the Senate or done by Congress, and then the justices have to look at that legislation as to how it works in America and how it works against the Constitution. Is that it? In other words, they didn't say, okay, gay marriage is good or gay marriage is bad. They simply ruled on, they called it as they saw it. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. It wasn't the issue as to whether gay marriage was good or bad. It was about the constitutionality and the laws dealing from the political processes.
Wendy?
I have to agree. I mean, this is an issue of constitutional law, and that's the job of the Supreme Court. In fact, it's the job of any court not to take public opinion or personal feelings into account, but they're there to interpret the law and to rule rightly the way they see the law should be interpreted.
Oh, I'll tell you what, as you said, it's probably not over, but wow, what a day here. It's the 26th of June, 2013, what we've seen. Thank you both.
Thank you.